What's up YouTube? JTwoH back here for another video. Today we're doing 2007 A Year in TNA DVDs. Jack says hi. But, I know it's just... Damn cat. Sorry guys. Say hi. I know we just did 2006 the other night, but that's because I got a really fucking busy week last week. And this week I don't have very much to do, so I'm gonna shoot this and then I'm gonna read some Captain America. So before we get started, now let's get started. Sorry about the cat, guys. I really am. I have the house to myself, so he's up my ass all day. But anyway, we started off with Final Resolution 2007. And now TNA was doing the logo on all the spines, which I think looks really good. I like it when they just started doing this. You got Hoyt and Stevens, Shelley and Starr in the PCS. Oh, I don't remember what that stands for. Petey Williams versus James Storm. That's pretty random. Rhino versus Styles. Daniels versus Lynn versus Sabin. LAX versus Team 3D. I think that started that feud. That feud went for a while. Angle and Joe in the 30-minute Iron Man match. It was a really good match. I liked that. And then the triple threat rematch between Abyss, Cage, and Sting, with Cage going over and winning the title from Abyss. So really the top two matches, the best two matches, were rematches. But I also really enjoyed AJ Styles versus Rhino. Obviously Cage winning the belt was a plus for me. I enjoy Christian Cage. God damn it. Sorry. Against All Odds 2007. Which was, I think it was a Shop TNA exclusive. I remember having to buy this off them. And then they did, I don't know, for whatever fucking reason, they did it upside down, so. Christy Hemi's in-ring debut versus, I don't know, Senshi versus Austin Starr. Serotonin, Raven's little group. Peter Williams and Gail Kim versus James Storm and Jackie Moore. Base Brawl 2 or 3. I hate that. I hate that concept. I don't ever watch those. Rhino versus Styles in the Motor City Change match. Little Italy street fight between LAX and Team 3D. Sabin and Jerry Lynn. The Prison Yard match between Sting and Abyss. And then Christian Cage versus Kurt Angle in the main event. It's a pretty good event here. Obviously, it was the follow-up to Final Resolution, so I mean, not much happens, but it's still watchable. Moving on to Destination X 2007. Actually, some of these covers, they're almost like a guilty pleasure. They're so bad, but like I really enjoy when they kind of give you the lineup on the cover. I mean, it's not a poster by any means, but I don't know, I enjoy them. So Destination X 2007. Then back to the normal lineup with the back. A 5-way ladder match from Impact. Gauntlet for the Gold from Impact, where Joe won his title shot. Well, there's some bonus matches. That's pretty nice. James Storm and Moore versus Peter Williams and Gail Kim again. Senshi versus Aries or Austin Starr. Ghetto Brawl between LAX and Team 3D. I remember the Ghetto Brawl. I think it's the Ghetto Brawl over the Little Italy. One of them is significantly better than the other one. Chris Sabin versus Jerry Lynn. I think it's the Ghetto Brawl. Kurt Angle and Steiner in a really goofy match, but I mean, what do you expect with Scott Steiner? But I mean, Kurt Angle almost makes it through with him. Last Rites between Sting and Abyss was actually decent. I liked that. I liked their feud they had going. I forgot how long it was. And then Christian Cage versus Samoa Joe. The first ever Elevation X, which is, there was only 2 of them, so. You know, it is what it is, but I actually I think I like the next one better than this one, but I don't mind watching them. I mean, I'm a TNA fanboy through and through, so if they could have a dog poop throwing contest, I'd like it. But I didn't mind the Elevation X. Lockdown 2007. This event, I gotta say, the matches were good, but I fucking can't stand the cage matches in here. I won't watch this all the way through in one sitting because I can't stand the cage. They had this really goofy, stupid cage for the electrified cage match, which obviously didn't turn out well. But they did this goofy cage the whole night, and I couldn't stand it. Serotonin versus VKM, Daniels versus Land, Peter Williams versus Robert Roode. Pretty sure this is his. It might be his debut as Robert Roode. I thought it was Bound for Glory. Catfight in the cage between Kim and Jackie Moore. Senshi versus Asa Star with Mr. Bob Backlund in there. A blindfold match was another one of those, like, it's like an Elevation X. It's a whole lot of build up and not much climax. Another escape. I do like the escape matches, except I hated the Black Machismo gimmick. The electrified cage match. We'll just not talk about that one. The Lethal Lockdown with Jeff Jarrett returning, and the guitar tack spot was the best part of the whole night, I thought. But I think this is the one where Angle flips Styles off the top of the cage, and I don't know. The Lethal Lockdown matches are usually my favorite part of the lockdowns. So I liked, like I said, the wrestling and the feuds and the build-up. Everything was great, and then the cage, man, it doesn't look like, it's not this cage. It's like, I don't know, it's bad. I wish they would just like redo, like recast or whatever. Reboot. Sacrifice 2007, which is I really love this cover. However, it's really inaccurate because that is the TNA World Title, and this one was still NWA World Title. But you know, got a 4-way X Division match. I really enjoyed the Texas Death Match here. Chris Harrison, Cowboy James Shore. That's a really good match. That's probably the match of the night here, which is saying something for this card. Rhino and Daniels, Jarrett and Robert Roode, Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles, and stuff like that bugs me. Does that bug anyone else? Look at that typo. Quotation, Samoa Submission Machine, colon. That's not a colon. That should be a quotation, but that's just me. Sabin, Dutt, and Jay Lethal. Team 3D versus LAX versus Steiner and Tomko. A triple threat tag match, and then a triple threat world title match between. Oh, they were all triple threats. Huh. But that was on purpose. Between Cage, Sting, and Styles. Or Cage, Sting, and Angle. With the weird finish because they wanted to establish the TNA World Title. But pretty classic post-big event, pre-big event in that one. Not much happened. And then you get to King of the Mountain. Slammiversary 2007. It does say King of the Mountain 2007. Which has the Photoshop TNA World Title. But this one I like. I really like the cover. I like the fact that there's a red spine. It just works really well. With this, I think. Basham and Damaja. I forgot they had a stint in TNA. That's Doug and Danny Basham versus the VKM. Mr. Backlund versus Alex Shelley. Rhino and Senshi versus LAX. Eric Young versus Robert Roode. I could watch them wrestle every day. NFL Great. See, it's another one of those things where it's kind of hard to watch. And they have a heel and a face tag teaming against Jerry Lynn and Frank Wycheck. So, whatever. Bruce versus Tomko is pretty sweet to watch. Sting and Christopher Daniels is actually better than you'd think. As far as their match. Sabin and Lethal. Again, I'm not a big fan of the Black Machismo. Team 3D versus Rick Steiner and Animal. Goofy tag team, but it was a really decent tag match, and it's got nostalgia with those two teams right there. And then the King of the Mountain. Cage, Angle, Styles, Joe, and Chris Harris subbing for Jeff Jarrett. Angle goes over, and usually the King of the Mountain's my favorite match of the night for Slammiversaries, and this was the case with this one too. So then, move on to Victory Road 2007. A little spoiler on the front there, and TNA was notorious. Don't ask me why, but for putting the Dudley Boys in main events, whether they were a tag team versus every other title like this one, or they're in a World Championship Fatal 4-Way, or they're pushing Bully Ray as the World Champion, which I didn't mind. But I don't know, that was their thing, I guess. Kind of a short card. Look, didn't even take up the whole back. But 10-man Ultimate X featuring the turn of Triple X. Oh, I remember that. Pretty good Ultimate X match right there. Basham and Damaja again. Rhino versus James Storm. They had a pretty good feud. The Motor City Machine Guns there versus Jerry Lynn and Bob Backlund. Mixed tag between Young and Kim versus Rob Roode and Miss Brooks. Chris Harris versus Christian Cage for almost no reason. But Sting and Abyss versus AJ Styles and Tomko. And then the matchup champions. That's why it's such a short card, is because no one, every champion is in the main event there. Kurt Angle is the world champion versus and the X Division champion Samoa Joe versus Team 3D. With Angle and Joe going over. And I actually really liked the whole Victory Road up until Bound for Glory storyline with Kurt Angle winning all the titles. Basically because I'm a huge Kurt Angle fan, so it'd be really hard not to like the Angle because he wins everything. Hard Justice 2007. I really liked this event. I'm pretty sure of the summer, they have some goofy ones, but as far as this Victory Road, No Surrender, but this is easily the best one, I think. You got Triple X versus Motor City Machine Guns versus Dutton Lethal, Kaz versus Raven because he's breaking out of that serotonin. Rhino versus James Storm again, this time in a barroom brawl. LAX versus BKM. Chris Harris versus Black Rain or Gold Dust. So, some of them are random goofy matches, but Eric Rude versus Robert... Eric Rude. God damn. It's late, guys. Eric Young versus Robert Roode. Team 3D versus the Steiner Brothers. Both of them are, in this one. Adam Pac-Man Jones. Not a huge fan of that angle, but, whatever. And the Doomsday Chamber of Blood match is notorious. Or it's super underrated. The type of match, yeah, it's kind of goofy. And then the stipulation was goofy, but it had Sting and Abyss and Test, Andrew Martin, in his only TNA appearance, versus the Christian Coalition of Cage, Styles, and Tomko. So definitely, if you've, thumbing through your old TNA collection, definitely pick this up and watch that match. It's definitely, I don't know. I like Test, and I like the ECW Test, so when I heard about him in here, I was just, all for it. And then Angle and Joe, winner takes all. So, pretty good event. Like I said, this is my pick for summer of 2007 for TNA. Then you got No Surrender 07. Pretty sure this was either a Best Buy or FYE exclusive. And then Kurt Angle wrestles 3 times. So you got a nice picture of Angle there in the back. Rhino and Storm. Again. Kaz and Robert Roode. Harris and Black Rain again. 10-man gauntlet for the tag team titles, which is actually really, it's a good gauntlet match. Joe versus Christian Cage. Kurt Angle and Sting versus Team Pac-Man. What could you do with Team Pac-Man? Kurt Angle versus Black Machismo. Yeah. Kurt Angle versus Abyss for the world title. I'd have to say Angle and Lethal was the best of the Angle matches that night, but it's just really hard to get past the Jay Lethal gimmick for me. I just didn't like it. What he's doing now, if he was doing that work in TNA, I would have been his biggest fan, But, oh well, live and learn. Bound for Glory 07. Really good Bound for Glory. One of their best of their earlier ones. Fight for the Right was goofy, the reverse battle royal, but it has Rikishi in it, so. Tables match between the Steiner Brothers and Team 3D. LAX versus Triple X and Ultimate X. That was pretty good. The Knockouts Battle Royal for the first ever Knockouts champion. Samoa Joe versus Christian Cage. Matt Morgan, Special Enforcer. I wonder if that was his debut. It might have been. Oh, Monsters Ball between Abyss, Raven, Rhino, and Black Rain. That was pretty good. I love the Monsters Balls. Especially when it was a 4-way match like that. When early on. Before they called every Extreme Rules match Monsters Ball. Lethal and Daniels for the X Division Championship. Team Pac-Man versus AJ Styles and Tomko. Team Pac-Man, you can call it Team Pac-Man, but it's Lethal Consequences. Adam Jones I don't even think he's there. I think he's just ringside. And then Kurt Angle versus Sting for the world title. And then this moves us right on to Genesis 2007 with not one of their best covers. That one even for me, that's pretty it's definitely a money grabber with all 4 of those guys, but it just, But Genesis was actually really good too for being a post-big event pay-per-view. Joe versus Rude, Machine Guns versus Team 3D, Abyss versus Black Rain and the Shop of Horrors. Man, I dug when Black Rain was here. He had all sorts of feuds. And I think the Abyss versus Black Rain feud leads right into the Judas Messias feud, which is really good. Kaz versus Christian Cage in the match of the night there at that ladder match. Kim versus ODB versus Angel Williams and Roxy. Styles and Tomko versus the Steiner Brothers. I really dug the tag team of AJ Styles and Tomko. Pretty much everything AJ Styles touches is gold, but of course he becomes Angle's lackey, you know, a couple months after this, and then he becomes a goof. Then all of a sudden he becomes AJ Styles again. And he wrestles Kurt Angle. So some of it's good and some of it's really good. Angle and Nash versus Sting and Booker T. Booker T was brought in as a mystery partner of Sting's because Kurt Angle won the belt off Sting the next Impact, like 2 days after Bound for Glory. And then they set up this tag for the title main event. So, pretty good post Bound for Glory event. Definitely not a throwaway. And then Turning Point, 2007, with the most photoshopped cover ever, as far as that Eric Young. But it's this event is definitely infamous, and we all know why. Roxy and ODB versus the Beautiful People, Eric Young and James Storm, Machine Guns and Lethal versus Team 3D and John Devine. Oh, I loved the 3D versus X Division feud. Feaster Fired 1. Gail Kim versus Awesome Kong. Not a big fan of Awesome Kong or anything she's in. 10,000 Tax match. Abyss and Raven versus Black Rain and Relic. Relic was Johnny Stamboli, if I remember correctly. But I just like... Look at the talent in that match. I don't know. I love Raven, so that match was definitely worth watching. Booker T and Kaz versus Cage and Rude. And then the Angle Alliance, so Angle, Tomko, and Styles versus Joe, Nash, and Eric Young, because we all know Scott Hall no-shows. Joe shoots a promo, pisses himself, TNA, and Kevin Nash off, and then calls out Eric Young, who had already wrestled, I think, he wrestled James Storms earlier. If he's not in the Feature Fired 2. But he wrestles a match earlier, and he comes back out as a TNA original, and they give him a decent push, and then it just stops, But anyway, guys, that's been my TNA 2007, A Year in TNA DVDs. I like 2007 better than 2006. Again, we're in the time of the year with TNA where it starts just, I was doing better and better every year, where I was digging it more and more and more and more. So, really cool. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Next week I'll be posting 2008. And then definitely take a look for the comic book of the week. And I'll have a pretty big TNA video, if not the end of this week, the beginning of next. So, make sure you keep a lookout for that. Anyway, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you later, YouTube.